Welcome to Fundamentals, a platform to understand your fund tenets. In this episode, we discuss Nippon India Small Cap Fund. This fund is the largest small cap fund in the industry. To put things into perspective, there are only two funds in the small cap space with assets under management of over 10,000 crores. This fund boasts of an AUM of a hopping 20,000 crores, returns since inception of over 19.7% annualized. It has a vintage of over 12 years. Today, we bring to you the man behind the scenes. We have with us Mr. Samir Rachh, who is responsible for managing this fund since January 2017. He's also been recognized by Business Standard as Fund Manager of the Year in the mid and small cap space in the year 2021. Thank you, sir, for joining in. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Meghna, for having me. Thanks, Hers.
So my first question to you is that managing a small cap fund requires a very different temperament. So what is your investment framework as far as the Nippon India Small Cap Fund is concerned?
Right. So I think it's a very simple kind of. So, in small cap, we can't make frequent entry and exits. So you have to essentially think long term. So, when you're investing for the long term, normally you obviously want to associate with good people and good businesses. So I think our philosophy is very simple. We want to get associated with good promoters, good management, and good businesses. And best thing, like if you get it at good price, kind of. So, then you get a margin of safety and you get ability to invest. So that's in a very simplistic way, kind of our philosophy. Because we invest for long term, and we do realize that in small cap we cannot do frequent entry and exits because impact costs are very high. So you have to essentially invest for long term, and so basically buy good companies and sit on them for long time. That's the core philosophy.
Right. So, sir, as far as small cap is concerned, a lot of focus goes as far as stock selection is concerned. So, can you give us an example from any of your underlying holdings, and what would be the stock selection procedure you would have followed for, picking up that particular company that you own in the fund?
Right. So, many times I would have said this in small cap, if you want to buy one company, you have to do research on 5 companies. Because, if you do research on some companies and say we like that company, it's not necessary that on that particular day, you will get the kind of float which is available, kind of. So you have to, keep on working on companies, you keep on framing views. And when the right time comes, so sometime, right time comes in a market panic, sometime right time comes and there is a large seller, kind of. So I'll just give you an example. For example, Deepak Nitrate, one stock. So before we bought our single stock, we were engaging with the company 3 years before that, 3 to 4 years before that. But we didn't buy at the time because we thought, company was implementing phenol project, which was very large project for the size of the company at the time. And we thought, it's more of a private equity kind of investor where such a large investment where there is such a large project which is long gestation. So we waited, and one fine day during demand, there was some panic in the market and there was one large seller available. So we grabbed that opportunity, kind of. So basically, we have to keep on doing work on companies. We have to keep on framing views, and sometimes you get only 5 minutes to make decision. So of course we have to make decision in a hurry, but it doesn't mean that we compromise on research. So we have to keep on researching and framing views, kind of, on managements, on businesses, and you should have in mind the value at which you want to buy it at the price at which it will be good, like investment. And one fine day, you never know when opportunity will come. So you have to be ready and be really fast at the time.
Right, being prepared is the key.
Yeah.
But so my question to you is that if I look at the past returns of the large, mid, and small cap, with the kind of risk the small cap category is associated with, we do not find the returns which are commensurate with the risk, that goes in owning a small cap fund or a small cap stock. While most of the funds have not outperformed, your fund has generated a 25% annualized return for the last 10 years. What is the secret sauce behind it?
So there is not secret sauce as such. I think it's very simple. So, we have been lucky enough to find some really good companies and which have been like really multi-baggers for us. And we have been holding some of the companies for really long. For example, Navin Fluorine is one company. We held holding it for more than 11 years. Similarly, like Deepak Nitrate, we held on for such a long time. When it has become mid-cap, like we reduced our overall position, it's been still multi-bagger. So similarly, so I think, we were lucky enough to like spot out some trend. For example, chemical is one sector really early enough, and we could buy some good stocks at really good price. So we didn't only get benefit of EPS growth, but we also got benefit of like PE rating. And we've got some of the really fine managements, and fortunately, I think markets are also pretty good, kind of. So markets are ready to reward disproportionately to the companies which performed well, kind of. So I think we have a very good research team, and they have been. So as I said earlier, also small cap is a very research intensive category. So I think our analysts, our team has been able to single out those kind of companies, and fortunately, we were lucky enough to buy meaningful stocks in some of these companies. So I think there's no secret such sauce as such. It's basically as simple as that. Buying, getting associated with good management and good businesses and holding them again for a longer period of time. I think it's simple. I think key is holding. See what happens. See when you hold some stocks for a longer period of time. For example, Navin Florin, as I mentioned, we've been holding for last 11 years. So I think you'll understand that no stock price moves in a straightforward line for 11 years. So there will be at least 3 or 4 occasions in the interim where Navin Florin would have corrected by 25, 30, 35 percentage kind of. So our idea is not to benefit from those kind of correction and take views. So we create a very diversified portfolio so that while Navin is going through correction, there is some other stock which is going up, which makes us for underperformance of Navin. So basically, our diversified strategy also gives us that ability to hold stock for a longer period of time. So I think key is on sitting, and basically our long diversification portfolio gives us that ability, because no stock moves in a straightforward direction. There are from time to time there are corrections. So we don't want to take too much benefit. We may take some strategic benefit out of, we can sell some quantity, but we don't want to lose our core position just because we expect stock to go through some interim correction.
Right, sir. So you mentioned that the holding period of your stocks is as high as 11 years in cases like that you mentioned. So when an investor is coming into your fund, what is the expected time horizon he or she should have in his or her mind?
Right. So this is essentially a small cap is a category essentially for long-term investors. So I always, so I have arrived at this period, so, if you want to come to this category, come with at least 7 and 8 year view. See, idea is that, if you want to really experience the beauty of small cap investing, one bull market has to pass through your portfolio. It's when bull market passes through your portfolio, when we go from winter to spring, how everything goes from gray to green. So that's a kind of, change what bull market can bring. And normally we have seen there is at least one bull market every 7 and 8 years. So if somebody comes with that kind of view, the chances of he having poor experience in this category becomes very low. And also, see, you have to give time. We're living in a very volatile world, and where in the short term, things are very, very volatile. So you have to give enough time for your companies to perform. So I think historically, what we have observed, that if somebody comes with that kind of horizon, the chances of getting disappointed with overall return are much lesser.
So my next question to you is something we often get asked by our investors. You manage a small cap fund with assets under management of over 20,000 crores. Even if I look at the second largest small cap fund, there is a substantial margin of approximately 7,500 to 8,000 crores as far as the size is concerned. Now, is size an advantage for you or a disadvantage? And how do you ensure that, with a diversified portfolio of like 150 stocks that you own, do you ensure that your research is not compromised, and at the same time the liquidity is also maintained in the portfolio?
Fine. So I'll answer the liquidity question first, kind of. So we get so we manage liquidity, I think, pretty well. So we normally always having cash of 2 to 3%, so that takes care of short-term liquidity. Then we have around 9 to 10% in large caps, kind of. So that again helps us meeting. So what we have seen that there are some sectors where there are not smaller companies. So for example, financial services is one sector where investing in a smaller company doesn't gives you any specific advantage unless the company which you invested is really niche company. The cost of fund would be higher. Then to cover up that cost of fund, they will be searching for borrowers which can pay high interest rates. And again, so it becomes very risky space. So we do keep some money in large caps, so which without compromising the overall return. For example, if you want to invest in oil and gas, so again there are no smaller companies. So if you bullish on oil and gas, you can necessarily buy large caps, kind of. So we always keep so 13, 12, 10% in large caps. So that takes care of immediate liquidity. Then over a period of time, some of our small caps, they become mid caps, kind of. So mid caps would be another 18% of our fund. So again, their liquidity is much better. And also in small cap, we ensure that we have a very good part in companies which are above 6,000-7,000 crore market cap, kind of. So I think we manage liquidity fairly well in that sense, kind of. And as far as number of companies and attention which it gets from our side, kind of. So, we have a very large research team. Perhaps, we have one of the largest research team on buy side. And we do ensure that, one analyst doesn't cover more than 60, 70 companies kind of. So it gets enough attention kind of. And as I told you that, like, see, many times, we have smaller position because we are not able to buy larger, and it's work in progress as far as buying is concerned, as our work is done. So as I mentioned to you, we are working on Deepak Night, even if we had zero holding, we're still meeting companies and, like we are framing our view kind of. So I think since small cap, as you rightly said, I think the game is in your hand before you buy. Once you buy, it's almost like a marriage. So if you want to exit out of marriage, it's difficult, and also it's expensive. So whatever work you have to do. So I always give this example: like somebody is trying to find a life partner for himself or herself or for his son or daughter. He'll do all the background checks. He'll call his employees, he'll call his friends, he'll call his neighbors, everybody. He'll gather information from all the sources. Kind of. So you have to essentially do all the works. And once you bought the stock, and then you realize you made a mistake, 50% is gone in small cap. So we try and encourage our team to do those kind of informal. So we try our analysts to meet unlisted companies, because we realize that unlisted companies, they give very frank opinion, because they don't have ESOPs. So we realize that over a period of time, management, they have ESOP, even if there's a bad news, they try to like pacify us, okay, there's a temporary thing and all that. So when you meet dealer distributors, when you meet suppliers, you get to know about culture of the company, and it is a culture of the company that gives you the conviction to hold stock for a longer period of time. So I will just give one example. For example, things do go bad in small caps. So we have this investment in a company called Tejas Network. So we had bought after IPO, maybe at the average price of 240, 250, then price all the way went up to 400. And when things started going bad temporarily because of a lot of problems in the sector and all, and stock price fell below 80, in fact. But we had kept touch with the management, and we were convinced that it's a company with right products, and it has great future kind of. So we didn't lose our conviction, even the stock price became 1/4 kind of, and in fact we added at the bottom kind of, and then our conviction got proven when Tata has finally acquired stake in that company, and today maybe that's going to be like a vehicle for their, like, a lot of their electronics and like telecom equipment investment. So basically, that softer things, research on softer things which you do, that gives you that conviction. So because of our large team, I think can be rest assured that even if the smaller position is getting enough attention, so we are attending all the calls. We are at least also trying to meet companies where we large investment, at least physically twice a year and all that. And we are also doing a lot of background checks. So I think our large analyst team helps us cover that.
Right. So what I understand is it is a lot about primary research which happens behind the scenes,
Absolutely.
which speaks for the success of this fund. So, sir, you mentioned, that an investor should come into this fund with a 7 to 8 year horizon, which means that, he or she is going to see different cycles of the market cycle or the business cycle, as we call it. So, how should an investor assess this fund, across the market cycle along the way?
See, frankly, cycles are very difficult to predict. So I have spent more than 30 years in market. So I cannot still say with confidence that I can predict the cycle. So cycles, you can say in the hindsight that, okay, this was a cycle kind of. So I think the best thing is, like, if you're in like invested in good managements, then they handle cycles pretty well. Nobody could have predicted COVID kind of, but still, we see so many managements have taken advantage of it and they've come out very well. So I think, we don't, or already I think small cap is a pretty complicated field kind of, and it requires a lot of work. So we don't add further complication by trying to take view on the cycles kind of. So I think as long as you've bought good companies and you avoided duds kind of, you've done risk management pretty well. I think it gives smoother experience, and perhaps I think when you look at it, the hindsight, you realize that across the cycle it has done well. Frankly, but we don't look at it from cycle to cycle because we are not in a position to predict the cycles, to be very frank.
We have seen fund houses and funds both making, mistakes as far as stock selection is concerned, as far as small cap is concerned. And just to quote you, you said that, it is all about, buying strong in ethical businesses where quality of both businesses and promoters matter. So how do you ensure that the qualitative checks are in place as far as your holdings are concerned?
See, basically, you have to keep on interacting with the management for a longer period of time. You have to go and interact at lower levels and all. So when you meet somebody, often, then you realize. So if somebody is bluffing, the first time you're not able to catch, but if you meet them 4 times, Then if there's a difference in talk, like at the back of the mind, you do realize kind of. So I think it's a culture of the company which is very important. So I'll give example. For example, we have investment in a company called Fine Organics kind of. So it's a beautiful culture. It's a company with like really great culture. So we had a meeting with management, and what we realized that you must have read that there was so much of shortage of containers like last couple of months. Everybody had, but fortunately, their supplier of containers, they had told me that you take orders, I'll ensure that you will get containers. Now, why it happened? Because company had was treating his like supplier very well, kind of. So when COVID started, they realized that company had a surplus cash and this guy could have problems. So they paid money to the supplier in advance. So now it was his time to reciprocate, kind of. So when everybody was going through like sort of containers, and what happened in case of Fine Organics, one of their competitors got acquired by very large MNC, and there's like customers started getting worried that since it's become part of such large MNC, whether we'll get enough services, and they gave a lot of orders to Fine Organics, and this was at the time when there was a container shortage. But company, because of their relationship with the supplier, could handle that pretty well and took advantage of the situation, kind of. And you can see there in last 2 quarters results and all that. So there are a lot of this softer things which you can like realize over a period of time. So I'll give you another example. For example, Deepak Nitrite, we had visited their phenol site when construction was happening. And I was amazed, like the kind of work which was happening, because I had the fortune of visiting Reliance Jamnagar site when it was under like implementation. And frankly, Deepak Nitrite site reminded me of Reliance Jamnagar site with the pace of activity, though much smaller scale kind of. We could make out that just before we visited, there was huge amount of rains, and actually work had to be stopped, and like they had to change their plan. And the way they had handled, and still they were able to keep the deadlines and all that, it really impressed us, kind of. So there are a lot of such softer things like which are difficult to put in words, but as you meet like them, you start framing view about companies and management at the back of your mind. And I think this kind of things help a lot in taking that investment decision. Sorry, a little longer answer, but
So I'm sure, sir, it comes with over 29 years of experience. It doesn't come very easy. So, sir, I'm sure, there are success stories as far as the fund is concerned, but I'm sure there would have been a few incidents in terms of bad selections that would have also transpired along the way. Could you highlight a few of those?
so there are many. So like out of 10 decisions you take in this industry, like 3 will go like for some other reason bad, kind of. So the key is to realize it early, and and realize. See, it's very difficult to realize a mistake because your ego is involved. So many times you give. So what we might have done to a lot of our mistakes very long time, but over a period of time, what we realize that you have to recognize them early. And so that's see what happens. Your bad investments, not only makes monetary loss for you, but you also take a lot of bandwidth, because you try to find reasons, then you meet management, so again they give you assurance, and then you give a little extra time, then again next quarter you realize, okay, things have even gone worse and all that. So I won't, without taking names, since we're talking a little bit bad. So we had made investments in one of the logistics company. So this logistics company had its like a CFS near Mumbai, kind of. But in CFS, like many years ago, government of India decided that companies can take direct delivery from port without going through CFS. So the entire business model got disturbed, and they could never come out of that. So ever since the company's performance, started slipping, and we kept on meeting management. So they say, okay, no, we have another ICD coming, so that will make up for the performance, and we believe them, and we give a little longer order. Right? So finally, we exited our position last quarter. So we can really give them long amount of time, but with the benefit of hindsight, what we realize that earlier you're able to recognize your mistake and correct it is better, because it releases your bandwidth, which you can utilize for focusing on your winners.
Right. So, the loss aversion bias, as we call it. So my last question to you is, you did mention that you have a very large team which, works in tandem with you to make this fund a great success. If you could highlight how the team works, it would be great for our investors.
Right. So see, what I'm realizing that, since we have 150 companies in the portfolio, it's becoming very difficult for me to be present everywhere physically. So I have to rely on my team, and we have fortunately a very good team, kind of. And we have many, we have a very stable team in that sense. Many of the analysts are there for years, and over a period of time, they graduated to become fund manager. So a couple of names, for example, Tejas Sept is our chemical guy. I mean, though he's a commerce graduate, when he meets many companies, chemical companies, and the way he asks questions and all. So I have heard like I was present in one meeting and where CEO of the company asked from where you done your chemical engineering, and though he's a like commerce graduate and like MBA. So over a period of time they develop such a. So we have Tejas, then we have Nikhil Rumta, like who handles sectors such as financial, who is the guy behind a lot of our financial picks like microfinance and like other sectors. So he's also like a very passionate analyst cum fund manager. Then we have like Ritesh, who has like found us so many great IT companies. So I mean, so with him we had some of the longest IT meetings. So one company we had meeting for more than 2 hours, and that guy finally said that this is the longest meeting with any analyst we had in our life. Like, and still after at the end of 2 hours, it was still interesting. Kind of. So we are very fortunate. Like we have very large team. I may not be taking names of just top of the mind, like 2, 3 names I've taken, but we have a fantastic team of analysts, I must say.
Right. I'm sure with the construct of the team and with you, the fund has definitely a bright future ahead. Thank you, sir, for answering all our questions very patiently. And I think what I carry forward from this discussion is that small cap investing is like a marriage. Choose the right one, or the impact cost could be much higher. Thank you so much for joining us.
So thanks, Meghna, for having me, and thanks. You really asked pretty great questions. So thanks, very great preparation. Thank you.